connecting to, yes. So we are doing this recording in a completely new format as opposed to how we used to do it. This is going to be a casual, a free flowing fireside chat that we are going to have. So, Amrita ma'am, you are free to, when on questions, there will be questions from my side. There might, and everyone over here, uh, please raise your hand if you have any follow-up question to what I ask her, and she will answer that, and then we will take it from there. Right? I hope that is clear to everyone. Right? So, my first question: how old were you when you got to know that your father has this past life? It must be, and how did
As
you
soon
take
as
it?
I was old enough to understand what he's saying. So right
Acha.
from my childhood.
Okay.
Don't mind my sore throat today.
Oh, you have a
So
social. Okay. Okay.
that also came. I don't know if it's some paranormal activity in the, I don't know. So I've lost
All
my
right.
voice.
All right. Okay. Have
But
have have
thank you
some
so much for
have some
having me
hot
today.
water with. Have some hot water.
I'm taking advantage of the fireside chat. I'm having my tea, my hot water
All right.
around me.
Great. 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 So how old were you, and how did you take it? Were you in a state of disbelief, or were you, enchanted by the whole idea that here's someone who not only had a past life, he remembers the past life.
Yeah, well, when I was old enough to understand what he was talking about and what it meant, which was pretty early in the childhood, like I don't remember the exact age, but must have been in school still.
Okay.
And of course, the idea excited me. I wanted to talk about it to my friends, rather boast about it.
All right.
So it was like, my father knows his past life.
All right.
So there was never any question of disbelieving him. First of
Hmm.
all, because knowing him as the way
Right.
he was,
Yeah.
and not saying because he was my father, but the way he was really like he would not have, just spoken through his hat.
Right.
And also the people around him, they
Huh.
were there to verify because he was the youngest of his 9 siblings.
Huh.
So there were older buas and uncles, aunts, they were around him to tell, the
Huh.
story to support
Right.
it with document. It
Right.
was always a dining table conversation would always end at this, that,
Okay.
like he knows his past life.
Huh.
And for me, till the age I was growing up, it was only like, something to, tell my friends about. And when they would come home, they would talk to my father, and never thought I would be ever writing a book on this at that time.
Right. Right. And coming to the book, this is a book that we are reviewing today. It's called Past Forward, 1878 and Counting, a Reincarnation Memoir by Amrita Uppal Lamba. So we are having a chat with Amrita ji over here. So what then prompted you, Amrita ji, to put this down in a book?
Okay, so as I said, it was always a story which we heard from him, and it was like a story to us,
Right.
to be frank. And something we did not disbelieve in, but something
Ah.
like I never thought beyond it. In our mind, every time we would talk about that Tinga, the place which is now in Pakistan, at
Hmm.
that time the time of his previous birth, it was still undivided India. It was
Right.
very much part of undivided India. But
Hmm.
now in my generation, like for me, it was some place, some old remote town in, Pakistan near Lahore. And it was in his past life. So it was a story which was over and done with, in the sense that never thought beyond it here, like we could take it forward. And my father was a very prolific writer. He was a columnist. He would sit down with all the newspapers every morning, write to editors on every topic possible. And he was an engineer, a scientific bent of mind. Even his reincarnation, he would treat it very scientifically.
Okay.
It was not just that, I'm a reincarnated. So no, it wasn't like
Okay.
that for him. So as I said, like, so that was there, but and he had written it. His story was published in many newspapers at that time, when he was born, when he was growing up. He was, but then it was just articles, which you can find in my book also, some of them. My father was he had pasted, he had like done a scrapbook, and each and every cutting was there in his folder, which unfortunately we are the actually we are to be blamed. We did not look after it, and it was damaged and spoiled. And I took out some whatever I could from it, and so even in my book you can see some, rat infested scraps of articles there pasted. Anyway, so as I said, he wrote to in fact University of Virginia also about his, because there was an article that University of Virginia had introduced reincarnation as a subject at that time.
Okay.
It had just been introduced. So he wrote about his rebirth to them. And at that time, Dr. Satwant Pasricha was doing a PhD from University of Virginia. There was correspondence between the two. And then she had wanted some more, like she had sent some questions to him. And that time, unfortunately, she was doing a PhD on children, and he was a grown-up by that time. So she told him that we cannot take your story at the moment, but she had asked certain questions, and there was some correspondence maintained. So as I said, it could never move beyond that. Though my father, contrary to his previous birth, this birth, he was a man of very few wants and needs, very unlike his previous self. And he was a giver in this life. And I have been in that privileged position where I've been able to compare the two lives and know and analyze where it's coming from, done my own research, which came later, of course. So so as I was saying, so then my father also got married. He got married at very late age of 36, 37, which was very late for those times, I'm talking about 1956. So he also got, occupied with raising a family and kids. So for some years, that matter also, went in a thanda baksa, as you would say.
Right,
so,
right.
Again, nothing was done about it. And then time went along, and so we also grew up, got married, got settled in our families. My mother always felt very proud of the fact that she had married a person who remembered his past life.
Okay.
For her, again, it was something, very special. And it was not that remembering your past life is not like it's just one alone odd case. You'll find many cases you come across so many cases, people remember. But then reconnecting with people of your past life after 90 years and getting document validation, authentication after 90 years is something which led me to, it's that I have to share now that I'm blessed to know I've been in this position now. So I should share this story with the world, whether it be a case study, whether it be like something to learn from or a takeaway, or where you can analyze the two lives and see how karma, how if it plays out. So because I was able to, trace the family after 90 years, which again, it was, I think, destined somehow. Because as I said, my father was a man of very few needs. So when he was turning 90, so I wanted to do something special for him. And as I said, at 90, I said, what do I do for him which would give him happiness? My brother would throw a big party. He would participate in that. He, as usual, he'd be very sporting and he would like to meet people and things. But what do I do for him which would, just be for him? So I asked him, I said, Daddy, would you like to go to Dinga on your 90th birthday? And he would always say no to any travel, especially after he lost my mother at the age of, I think in 2000, year 2000. So he said yes. His eyes sparkled and he said yes. Without thinking, he said yes. I said, okay, that will be my gift to you. I'll take you to Dinga. That was sometime in May or June. And I came back to Delhi from Lucknow, where he was at that time. And as time went by, I also became busy with my work and routine. And I think it was sometime in autumn that I said, my God, have I overcommitted myself? I promised Daddy, I made big promises, but I haven't done anything about it. I don't even know where Dinga actually is on, on
Right.
the map, exactly location, or what, how do you reach the place? How far is it? Is it safe to go considering the situation? So
Right.
I started Googling. Let me Google. So Google Baba always comes to the rescue. So when I put in, so my father, because my father remembered his name. And I'll just add one more thing here. It is not that my father remembered only big events of his life. It was sometimes a little thing, or it could be a very major event. So there were random things that he recollected.
Right.
So,
Right.
but he remembered his name, but his surname. But he remembered that he was Rai Bahadur. He was a PN, started with a PN, and then he became a Rai Bahadur. It was a rags to riches story. And
Right.
before going into the details of the story, I would tell you that, so I just typed in Sundar Das. No, I typed in Dinga. Just typing in Dinga opened 2 pages for me. One was a personal Dinga blog, which was maintained by some person, a resident of Dinga. And then another was Sundar Das. There's a Wikipedia on Sundar Das. I did not know till then that I knew my father was famous, but I did not know he was that famous. So, there was a whole this thing on Wikipedia about him. And I just read it, and I still, I'm going back to that moment and reliving it in my mind. And I said, oh, wow, what is this now? So I forgot about finding where Dinga was on the map, but, I went onto the blog. And in the blog, there were more than half the comments were on Sundar Das. After 90 years, people were still writing about Sundar Das
Wow.
on
Wow.
Dinga blog.
Wow.
And somebody written to someone that you come from such an illustrious family, you are so blessed to be his relative, and those kind of things. So I went down and I just saw, and I saw one name and someone, saying that you come from that family, you are so blessed. So I just wrote a comment under there that if you are related to Sundar Das in any way, this is my email, this is my number, please contact me. And believe me, the very next morning, early morning, I got a call from an unknown number, and it was Sundar Das Chopra's great grandson.
Wow. Wow.
And then he went, so that's how we connected. And then, of course, when I told him, so
How did they take
luckily
the
at
news?
that time,
How did they take the news? I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. I'm very curious. How did they take the news?
of course, was like when I spoke with the great grandson, he had lots of questions for me. Out of the blue. And let me tell you, as I said, he was Rai Bahadur. He was, one of the reasons he was killed was there was a lot of wealth involved. There was so much wealth involved that this generation says कि हम अभी तक उनका दिया हुआ खा रहे हैं.
Wow.
Even the third generation. And so you can believe it that they were so skeptical. First of all, about the phenomena, then about why after so many years, why she, what is her motive? Is she after her wealth?
Yeah.
Is she after, what is the reason? And then, so then he asked me certain questions which only the family was privy to. I gave them answers which only a family person was privy to.
Wow.
Some
Wow.
things like he was poisoned
Acha.
in his previous life, which my
Okay.
father has said. So I
Okay.
told him that, he was taken aback, which I
Wow.
don't think even all the family members. When I told him it was one of the wives, he married twice. That was one of the
Acha.
reasons he was poisoned by the first, one of the wives. And let me tell you that it was the great grandson of the first wife I was talking to. At that time, I did not realize that.
Okay. Okay.
So
Wow.
then we made, of course, we made plans, and we made, so he said, let's meet. So we met at the Gymkhana. So
Okay.
he brought another granddaughter. And that time I realized that the entire Dinga was here. It never
Okay.
occurred to us that after partition, all Hindus mainly had moved here. There was
Okay.
nobody left in Dinga. So
Okay.
everybody was spread in India. So someone was in Dehradun, someone was in Bombay, someone was wherever, but there was no family of Sundardas Chopra apart from the mahals he had built, which are heritage properties there now.
Okay.
So apart from that, there was nothing there. There were no human beings or as per se,
So,
there.
so
So we
all the
met here,
relatives
then
and
the entire clan.
yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, so the
So
entire
all the relatives and
sorry,
descendants were here in India itself.
I met the ones which were here. There was this great grandson I met. There was a granddaughter I met.
Tell us about this
Matlab
picture that is on.
his bua.
Please tell us about this
Sundar
picture
Das's
that is on
granddaughter
screen.
I met.
Okay.
Okay,
Tell us about
this
this picture.
is, so we are coming to this. This
Uh,
is the time when Sundar Das's granddaughter and great granddaughter and a great grandson visited Lucknow to meet my father after our meeting.
okay.
They came to Lucknow to see it with their own eyes, to question him, to cross question him, to ask questions, believe in the story or not to believe. So this is the great granddaughter who is with my father here.
Okay.
And after meeting him and after all the questioning and this thing, what she said in the end was, if my great grandfather had lived his full life, I would never have had the privilege to meet him in person. I am so blessed to have met my great grandfather today.
Wow.
And I'm saying, like, there was no need for them to believe in my story, Everything, each and everything my father had ever said, each and everything was validated by the family, so much so that they shared all their documents with me. They shared the date of death with me because that I did not know till then.
Yeah,
They
you showed me
gave
this
me
during our earlier conversation.
yeah. When I
This is
decided to do the book, this even the family did not have. This even the family did not have, but my family gave me the date of death, and I know the date of birth of my father. So again, biologically, there's a chapter in my book where I've proven it biologically as well. So as I said, my book is divided into 4 parts. One is about the rendezvous with the soul, where he talks about the things that he remembered. Then there's one full part about Sundar Das, his early years, his childhood, how he died, his marriage.
Can everyone see the screen? Sorry, I'm interrupting you. Can everyone see the screen here, please?
We can see the screen,
PDF?
but we can't make out what is written.
Okay. Just 1 second. Okay, fine. So I'm sharing it again. Okay.
So Amrita, just in the interim period, so what was the gap between the previous life?
Yeah. So so again, like when my father passed away on 30th October 1921 in Quetta. He was poisoned there. His principal residence was Dinga. His body was brought to Dinga by a special train because he was Rai Bahadur, and there was a special. And in those days, trains did not, run every day. There were particular days of the week, but for him, there was a special train run for him, and his body was brought to Dinga for the cremation. And my father, I have my voice recordings of my father, which I did at the age of 93 when I was doing my book. It took me so long to do the recordings, which if I'd done earlier in his, like his prime time, it would have been so much quicker. But now it took time. He was stone deaf by that time. I had to write down everything for him, but he spoke, which I had to edit a lot. But I have those precious voice recordings, which are on SoundCloud. If anybody wants to hear his original voice talking about his reincarnation, the links are in the book. And then he said, "मैं train में आया, पर body में नहीं आया." He used to say, "मैं body के साथ आया, मैं घर तक आया, मैं दरवाजे तक आया, So he used to talk like this. And he also used to say that मैं देख रहा हूँ कि सब रो रहे हैं, मैं फ्लोट ऊपर से देख रहा हूँ कि सब रो रहे हैं नीचे, तो मैं कह रहा हूँ कि देख नहीं रहे, रो क्यों रहे, देख नहीं रहे, मैं सो रहा हूँ. And I floated out, and there was this woman sitting on a chabutra outside, and I entered her womb, which was validated when I will come again later, but I'm jumping, I think. So let me come back, which is again validated, okay? So nothing in my book which I put in is all hearsay or without validation.
Wow.
So when he passed away on 30th October, and he entered my grandmother's womb 2 days later, 3 days, when the body was brought to Dinga. My ancestral village, forefathers are from Dinga. And my grandfather was posted in Northern Railway. That time it was undivided India, as I said. So he was with British Railways, posted this side, Northern Railways. And they used to visit Dinga only for shadis or, some event or soup or book, whatever. So it happened to be one of the occasions of a marriage of one of the children, that my grandmother was carrying my father in her godi as a 3-year-old child. So when she reached Dinga, that's the time when he just jumped out of my grandmother's godi and he said, "Yahi jagah to main aapko hamesha bolta hu, ye hai mera ghar." When he saw the Dinga station, a 3-year-old kid.
Wow.
And he's saying, again, my father's voice recording is there, but he said, मैं बोल रहा हूँ, मैं रो रहा हूँ कि मेरा घर इस तरफ है, मेरी माँ सुन नहीं रही है, वो जा रही है, रास्ते में बहुत गर्मी थी, ट्रेन का सफर बहुत लंबा था, पानी भी नहीं देते थे ट्रेन में, माँ कह रही है मैं जल्दी घर पहुंचूं, और मैं रोए जा रहा हूँ, बच्चा, मैं कह रहा हूँ इधर चलो, रास्ते में घुड़सवार आया, कह रहा क्यों बच्चे को रुला रहे हो, तो माँ ने कुछ नहीं सुना, माँ ने मेरी नहीं सुनी, मैं रोता रह गया. So he was talking about the Sundar Mahal, which is just next to the station. He remembered as a child of 3. So when Dinga hoga kitna, like it is like a chota sa place within 10-15 kilometers of stretch. So that time to aur bhi undeveloped hoega. So when they were eka din later, whatever, they were roaming around there. So naturally they passed Sundar Mahal, which was his principal residence. So my father, again, mere taya ji ka haath chhod ke, he ran inside. He was 3. You have to remember that. Huh? He ran inside. Andar jaake he says, "Ghar ka malik aa gaya, sab kahan hai?"
Oh, wow. Kya baat.
So when all this happened, then he said, "Mera piano kahan hai?" So when jo ghar ke log the, they said, "Tum apne ko Rai Bahadur keh rahe ho, to tum piano bhi dhoond lo. Piano हमसे क्यों पूछ रहे हो?" तो he said, मैं गया सामने वाले कमरे में, और वहां बीच में दोनों कमरों के बीच होता, वहीं पड़ा था, मैंने बता दिया ये है मेरा पियानो, ये था. So when all this happened, so my grandmother had never mentioned an episode which had happened with her 3-4 years ago. She had never mentioned it to her family till that date. When this thing happened, she went home and said, इस घर में मैं 4 साल पहले आके बैठी थी. उस दिन मेरा ट्रेन थोड़ी जल्दी पहुंच गई थी, अंधेरा था, मैं अकेली उतरी थी, तो उस दिन भीड़ बहुत उतरी साथ में. नॉर्मली अ स्मॉल टाउन एंड अ स्मॉल स्टेशन, कितने लोग उतरते होंगे ना. सो बट ही सेड उस दिन बहुत भीड़ थी, तो अंधेरा था, मैं भी भीड़ के साथ होली. मैंने कहा चली जाऊंगी मैं भी पगडंडी से और व्हाटएवर अपने घर. कहती बट वो भीड़ जो थी वो एक घर के आगे जाके रुक गई और सब अंदर चली गई, तो मैं फिर अकेली रह गई. तो मैं वहां चबूतरे पे बैठ गई कि दिन होगा तो मैं आगे चली जाऊंगी. And that was the time when my father used to say that I was floating, I saw everybody crying, I floated out, and I entered the womb of this woman sitting on the chabutra. And my grandmother spoke about that incident only after he visited Sundar Mahal in this life, 4 years later. So 30th October, he passed away, as I said. He was born on 30th of March, 1922. And he was a little premature born. And also, as we say, the life in the fetus comes in after the first trimester. There is no life before that in your it's a fetus, right? So that was the time that Sundar Das Chopra decided to, and there's a chapter here, which my father, he was a different man the night my grandmother passed away. There's a chapter in the book describing that whole night when he was sitting next to my grandmother and my grandmother, when she was leaving her body. And that time there was something in him, and he started talking about how he had entered her womb. And there was so much this thing on his face, which I've written in there's a chapter here. So in my book is divided into 4 parts. I did not want to make it content heavy. I wanted to make it easy on the eye read. I wanted it to be not just a case study. I wanted it to be interesting for anybody to pick up and read. So there are lots of pictures, very easy treatment given, big fonts, big leading to the spacing done, the way it's described. So first part, as I said, is rendezvous with the soul. So ending of one life and leading to the beginning of another. Remnants of memories are the things which my father remembered in this life. All they are bulleted points. Everything that he remembered in this life are here. And then life 1 is Rai Bahadur's life. Life 2 is my father's life. And if you see here, there's a chapter here, the big revelation by my grandmother, which I'm talking about. So, and then there is one, the night my grandmother died in 1970. So these are all validations. And then I've tried to analyze the whole reincarnation phenomena scientifically, biologically, spiritually. That is in the past, present, continuous chapter. And the grand reunion with the family, and to explain it biologically, to explain it scientifically, spiritually. Even for my book launch, I had a very eminent panel, and you will not believe, it is like as if somebody from was blessing us or what. Who would come to my, who would I get in touch with? Dr. Satwant Pasricha, who my father had come in, I did not know till then, who my father was in communication with at UVA. I just happened to connect with her, I don't know, through Google, whatever, and I invited her. That is the time she said, your story sounds very familiar. Are you talking about Balbir Singh Pal? And then she brought out original letters of correspondence. Now my book is also in UVA. It's a case study there, and it's taught as a subject, part of the subject. That book is also there. And they invited me to UVA, and as my son is also in Virginia, so I did go there with my son, and it was a real different experience. So then I had a very different panel discussion at my book launch to talk about it in every possible, like different genre of people, believers, non-believers, whoever you might say. So a scientist, an IIT professor was there, very eminent. He also takes classes in Tihar jail. He's a scientist. He's an IITian. There was Satwant Pasricha, who's a PhD in reincarnation, I told you. She's done so many case studies. There was a science person from, his background was engineering. He turned into Buddhist monk, Nitya Shanti, I must have heard of him. He was there. And the moderator above all was the great granddaughter whose picture you just saw with my father. She flew in from Bombay just to moderate the event. And at the book launch, families of both the wives were there, the descendants. And also, I got in touch with people of Pakistan. I got in touch with the family who got Sundar Mahal as in rehabilitation during partition. A Muslim family from India when they went to, like, in exchange, whatever, they went to Dinga and they were given this house, Sundar Mahal, on a platter. And I got in touch with him. It was very difficult. It was a task to tell them. First, they would hear, oh, I'm calling from India, they would put the phone down. And I did not blame them, like, considering the way things were politically and always are, and everything. Then I called up again. Then when they asked me the reason for calling up, they still did not believe it. It was sounded so strange to them, the reason for my calling. Then this person who lives in Sundar Mahal now, he asked me to share my ID with him on Facebook. I did that. After that, he warmed up. all the pictures in my book are sent by him. In the current pictures are sent by him. The Sundar Mahal, the way it is now. And he says, I feel blessed that I'm living in Rai Bahadur's Sundar Mahal's house. I want to preserve it. This is a blessing for me. उनका एक रूम है जिसमें सुंदर दास का बेड था, राय बहादुर का. It's treated like a royalty. We don't even sleep on it. It's a Muslim country. So my father had a Om ka upata. He was a Hindu in his previous life. He's Sikh now in this life. So he had a Om ka symbol on top. Just imagine he's preserved that symbol. Only the plaster of Paris, which has, weather beaten and it's, like nikal gaya. You can see it in my book again, the picture. He's saying it's the way, and he's saying बहुत cost लगती है इसको preserve, but I as far जितना कर सकता हूँ मैं उसको preserve करता हूँ. And when I thanked them in the end, there were 3 people who really helped me with the research, got me documents, got me everything, because my father had built a school. My father was his past life was very different from this life. His previous life it had everything, all the Bollywood masala you would speak of. It had greed, it had lust, it had sex, it had murder, it had, wealth, it had everything that you can possibly think of. Charity. My father was a shrewd businessman, yet he did so much charity, irrespective of faith. Again, there's a Urdu farman in the book. जैसे राजा लोग नहीं फरमान जारी करते हैं, उन्होंने फरमान जारी किया था, which has been shared by this family to me. They shared that document with me. उसमें लिखा था कोई भी पासरबाई मेरे घर के आगे से निकलेगा उसको 1.25 सेर आटा और 1 आना मिलेगा. And around 700 plus people used to benefit in a single day. And उसमें नीचे लिखा था अगर मेरा कोई भी वारिस disobeys this farman of mine, he'll be disinherited.
Wow.
And this was in 2000, a year before he was poisoned. And he would tell my grandmother in this life that मैंने उनको बोला कि मैं जा रहा हूँ. उसने पूछा कहाँ जा रहे हो, तो मैंने कहा तुम्हारी बहन के पास, because he had married twice. He would call तुम्हारी बहन के पास. So she said अच्छा ये पीते जाओ. उसने कोई सफेद चीज पीने को दी और माँ मैं तेरे पास आ गया. That is what he used to tell my grandmother. Wow. And this family, they acknowledged.
Wow. Oh,
and the evening of the reunion in Lucknow with this family, us, this family, and my father. And my father was a man of very few words in this life. And he was a very scientific bent of mind he had, and he would talk sense. So whatever he said made, we used to value his opinion for everything. So he kept saying, in Punjabi, I would say what he said, then I'll explain it. He spread his arms as far as he could to embrace everybody in the room, and he said, "Aj main bahut badda ho gaya." Aaj main bahut bada ho gaya. He kept saying that every now and again. Then he asked the great grandson, "Rani साहिबा ने आपको कुछ दिया? आपको मिला? आपको कुछ मिला?" उन्होंने कहा आप चिंता मत करो, हमें सब मिला. Then he was so many things he would talk about. As I said, they are all in this book again, as I would say. And
okay.
one thing,
Sorry, I'm interrupting you. I'm so sorry. I'm very curious to know. See, there are 2 aspects to this book, according to me. What are the highlights? One is the reincarnation bit, right? That definitely is the highlight, the reason why this book exists, right? But another aspect is the rags to riches story of Rai Bahadur, right? Now, would you like to just share with us some of the highlights of that particular rags to riches story?
I will share only the part which my father remembered, not the part which this family filled in the dots with. I won't tell that.
Sure.
Those are in the book, but I will talk only what my father carried from his past life.
Sure.
So he said he was a PN. He asked for a raise. He was not allowed a raise. He quit the job. Okay. Then he said he was helped by a British lady. And he was selling vegetables and fruits, thela lagate the. He was not educated, which I found out later when I reconnected with the family, that they did not come from a very, literate back. And he lost his father at a very young age, so they had to stop studies and, take up work or whatever. So he was not very well educated. Sabji ka thela laga ke, fruit ka thela. He said a British late, and it was undivided time. Just keep that in mind all the time. Huh? I'm talking about 1878. My book begins, not in this life. Huh? It starts from 1878, from when he was born. So then there was this British lady who just you start take a fondness for someone and you want to help him. So rose every evening, जो थोड़ा सा 1 रुपए की सेविंग होती थी, that lady told him, Sundar Das, तुम 1 रुपए की सेविंग जरूर किया करो, and he would give 1 rupee to save it with her.
Okay.
And her husband was into shares and stocking. मतलब जो भी he was a Britisher, but he would help him with stocks.
Achha.
Then धीरे-धीरे he started buying shares.
Atul sir, are you listening to this?
And this all my father carried from his past life, not that this family had told me.
Absolutely, sir.
Isn't that amazing?
It is absolutely amazing. I mean,
and then what happened? This British lady was validated by this family, by the way. Then क्या हुआ कि luckily for Sundar Das Chopra, luckily for him, First World War broke out. Then the First World War broke out. This husband of this British lady suggested to Sundar Das कि तुम contract apply करो, government contract के लिए apply करो, आर्म supply का, राशन का, आटे का, आर्मी जाएगी, क्वेटा जाएगी, तब तो बलूचिस्तान तक, अफगानिस्तान तक, मतलब ईरान तक, कहाँ तक हम लोग का था. I'm talking about all in about 19. Then the First World War happened 1912, 1908, है ना? Just a moment. So guided by them, इन्होंने government contract के लिए apply किया. वो भी बहुत interesting, fascinating anecdotes हैं इसमें, how it happened. And he was a very shrewd guy, my father, in his previous life, unlike this life. वो कुछ भी कर सकते थे, charity भी खुल के, गड़बड़ भी खुल के, शौक भी पूरे, सब कुछ पूरा. तो and so then जब उन्होंने apply किया, तो because through influence and also he got the contract. Then he got the contract. इनके camels जाते थे, उन दिनों camel पे सामान जाता था. He became richest. धीरे-धीरे उन्होंने properties नहीं, शहर खरीदे, शहर, auction हुई Warburton. If you Google, you will see Warburton, which is next to Nanaksar Gurdwara, जो है पाकिस्तान में. And उसकी बहुत fascinating story है how he purchased that. Again, not by legal, पूरा मतलब not by ethical standards.
Not all right.
मतलब ये था कि मैं पूरा शहर खरीद लिया, जगह नहीं खरीदी, पूरा शहर. Warburton भी ले आए. तो then he became, and जो contract था, government contract जो इनको मिलता था, even the camels were insured. Camel पे जाता था सामान, वापस कैमल पैदल खाली आते थे, महीनों लग जाते थे, रॉकी टेरेन था बलूचिस्तान से होते हुए, like it was all very, there were no roads and nothing, so सारा कुछ आर्म सप्लाई से लेके सब कुछ जाता था. So वापस जो खाली आते थे उसमें my father said, why उनको खाली क्यों लाना, पैसे बनाओ. तो वहां से पर्शियन कार्पेट्स, चीजें पर्शिया की ईरान तक सामान पहुंचाना, जब पहले वहां से पैसे मिलने, जो सामान ट्रांसपोर्ट हो गया. Then on the way back he would bring stuff from there. अपने घर के लिए भी शौकीन बहुत थे. The kind of palaces he's left behind, when you see the pictures, so you see at that time, he built those 2 havelis. One was for his second wife, Ram Pyari Mahal, in his second wife's name, and first was Sundar Das Mahal, which is in his name.
Okay.
And Ram Pyari Mahal is a heritage property declared by the government. They are turning it into a museum and a cafe and a book cafe also. So maybe sometime a book reading will happen there also. Who knows? So and then उसके बाद जब वापस आते थे तो इन सुंदर महल पर्शियन कार्पेट्स जमीन पे तो लगी हैं. Ceilings were covered with Persian carpets.
Okay.
Till
Wow.
date.
Wow.
अभी आप पिक्चर्स मेरी बुक में दिखेंगी आपको, worn out हो गई हैं, but they are there.
Okay.
And
Okay.
to tell you a little thing, when during my research I found out the owner of Fab India now, उनके जो थे father, he was a चार आना partner with Sundardas Chopra.
क्या बात है.
And then when I went to meet Bim Bissell, she told me that मैं अपने पापा को कहती थी कि काम हम लोग दोनों सेम करते हैं, तो वो इतने अमीर, हम इतने गरीब क्यों हैं? Just imagine Fab India saying हम इतने गरीब क्यों हैं? तो वो कहते हैं भाई तुम नहीं समझो कि हम चार आने के पार्टनर. And that was his policy. That was his business policy. He was always a partner, but always took the lion's share. Always gave a चार आना or something to the next one. And then जब वापस आता था कैमल, वहां से ट्रेडिंग का सामान तो लाते ही लाते थे. इसके अलावा वो कैमल की टेल को कट कर देते थे and he would go to the insurance office and show कि कैमल तो मर गया रास्ते में.
Oh God.
उसकी टेल का वो बुश दिखा के he would take claim insurance also on it. So it was money coming in from everywhere.
By hook or by crook, he was very focused that he has to make money as much as possible.
बाकी चैरिटी भी थी, मुस्लिम्स के लिए था कि गरीब के घर के किसी लड़की को दफन करना है, किसी घर के गरीब को दफन करना है. They should not be short of money. उनके लिए अलग अकाउंट था, उनको एक फिक्स्ड अमाउंट था जो मिलता था. हिंदू जो भी सराय बनाई where people used to come and live for months.
Okay.
तो मतलब क्या नहीं किया, फरमान जारी किया.
Ma'am, I would like to interrupt you. If you can just switch on the lights in your room. It's getting very dark.
Sorry. Is it
Okay.
better?
Much
You want
better.
more lights? You want more lights?
Preferably from in front of you, because light is right now
I'll just
behind
get
you.
up and I'll
Yeah,
just get up and
please. No, not an issue. So what an interesting and engrossing conversation we are having. Anyone over here who has any question for Amrita Lamba, please raise your hands. Sadhna, are you there?
I'm there. I would like to know. Okay, this is all the events, but as a soul.
Let her come back. Let her come back to her seat.
I need to turn off this light.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Now,
As I was saying, Hanji.
so Amrita ji, we have someone with us who is into past life regression.
Let me tell you before. Have you heard of Dr. Newton?
Yeah.
Kondavati? So my forward is done by Dr. Newton Kondavati.
Yes. Okay. Awesome.
So because he was so taken in by my book, he wrote the forward. It was very, very kind and gracious of him to write the forward for me.
Yes, he's amazing.
And I went to Hyderabad specially to get my past life regression done by him when I was writing the book, because I wanted to know who was I in his previous life, my role. Because I said we are 3 kids. Why am I only me, and my father was such a prolific writer in his prime time. He could have done anything himself. He did not do. My brother, who was elder to me, he did not do anything about it. My sister, why me? So I wanted to know my role in his, previous life. And because I told him, I said, when you do the regression on me, ask me this question.
So what was the answer?
Sorry?
I'm very curious. What was your relationship in any other lifetime? Because we all traveled in soul groups.
What did he say, you mean?
Yes.
Sorry, I can't.
No. What was your relationship to him in
That's
your
what
past?
I said. Unfortunately, I think I was too conscious and my mind was too active to finding answers. Because I wanted to find answers, I don't think he could take me back to that point.
But it is
also because I knew all the dates and deaths of everybody in the family now, because I met this family now. So I knew I could not be him, I could not be her, I could not be this, I could not be that, because that person was living till then and I was born already. So I already had done so much of subtraction in my mind already, that I think my mind was too active. I did not surrender myself completely. So I don't blame him.
Okay.
No, I totally get what you're saying, because this has happened many times when I've done past lives for people. It's not easy for the mind to let go because it's unknown territory.
Especially when I went with a purpose, because I was doing, and I would really like to tell you, ma'am, here, that I asked Dr. Kondavati, when he was doing my thing, I asked him, I will just read out what I've written in the book.
Yes,
I asked
sure.
Dr. Newton, I asked Dr. Newton, what is the purpose of my father taking a reincarnated birth?
Super.
He said, to share the existence of reincarnation with the world. He replied. But then why through me, I asked, perplexed. Considering he has been such a prolific writer and columnist all his life, he could have done it himself. Then he said, because the purpose of his is being born a reincarnated soul, and then you choosing to be his daughter was meant to be. Your father wishes to use you as a medium to convey his message to the world.
I totally
and then suddenly
get it.
everything fell in place.
Wow.
Yeah, I totally get that. It's absolutely, because we travel in soul groups. So I totally get what you're saying. It's amazing. And for me also, I'm so glad I'm here listening to you in person, because it's one thing to do past lives, it's another thing to hear it with so much evidence.
And Sadhana,
So much so that I went to do research. Sorry, Hanji.
Sorry, I was just telling Sadhana that Amrita ji, she's your neighbor. She lives in Alaknanda and Sadhana is in CR Park.
Seriously? Oh my God.
I'm in Alaknanda. I'm in Tara Apartments, and in my house is an open house. Anybody is welcome anytime, please.
Wow, I would love to touch base with you. So on a one-to-one.
And I'm always looking for victims to experiment my cooking on. So please come.
Yeah. I'm going to take you up on that for sure. It'd be so amazing.
Anytime.
I want to ask you one question, please. See, what did he have to say? He had a very short transition period of about 3 days or 4 days before he took rebirth, right? Did he have, because normally souls don't take birth so fast. They are in a sleep mode or in a, where they're recouping. So did he have much to say about that transition period?
I asked him, my last chapter in the book is all about integrated learning. I prepared some questionnaires for my father to answer.
Right.
But as I said, by that time he was stone deaf. I had to write it down. So it is in his writing also, which I pasted. You can see what he's answered, but also, so when I asked him, he said I can read from the book also, and I can read his word.
Whichever.
Yeah. Sadhana, it would be great if you can put on your camera right now.
Okay, no, it's not a very, okay, I will.
Yeah, please, we would all love to see who's, okay, great. Okay, outside. Awesome.
I'm on a walk on my terrace. Hi. Nice
Please do come. You're more than welcome to my house. Everybody, in fact, I've been telling Rajesh ji to come anytime.
Yeah. I'm surely going to take you up on this.
This is my chapter, integrated learning. There it's a question answer session with my father.
Okay.
Wow.
Can you read us something from your book that you really loved?
You lived as Rai Bahadur Lala Sundar Das, and you're living as Balbir Singh now. It has been indeed a long life journey for you. You have seen two lives in sharp contrast. One could say almost in continuation. Your experiences together span a good 136 plus years and counting. What is the message you wish to convey? I asked him that.
Okay.
So he wrote back saying, soul ek hai, living life ek hi hai. Soul is one and living life is one.
Okay.
So then I asked him, what is time according to you?
Right.
So then he said, time is precise hour of destiny. Everyone has to bow down to it. This is the truth. No one wishes to do things which are not right. No one is at fault. Sab samay karwata hai. It's time that impels your actions.
Right.
So then
was a big
my
believer
voice recordings में और elaborate किया हुआ है उन्होंने कि कोई भी गलत करना नहीं चाहता but अपने हाथ में नहीं होता. कोई जान के नहीं करता but हो जाता है. He regretted marrying twice. He said गलती की थी मैंने.
अच्छा अच्छा. Okay.
गलती की थी मैंने, एक घर में थी, बच्चे थे और मैंने दूसरी शादी की. तो I said आपने क्यों की? He says पैसा था, दौलत थी, सब कुछ हो गया था, क्या करना था? And पहली वाली जो थी, that she was illiterate because he was that time very poor. It was an arranged marriage. अब पैसा आ गया, सब कुछ. अब यूरोपियन सर्कल्स में घूमना है, ब्रिटिश सर्कल में आइस कैंडी चाहिए. So supposedly the second wife was supposedly very beautiful. जो मेरी बुक में पिक्चर है, मेरे को कहीं से दिखा नहीं ऐसा कुछ. मेरे को थोड़ी लेटर लाइफ की पिक्चर है.
No, as they say,
So that
beauty
time
lies in the eyes of the beholder. They say beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder, so you're not to be blamed for that.
Yes. No, I believe she was very beautiful. Everybody says that. But I have an old age picture है मेरे पास. So anyway, he said she was so beautiful and he married her for ice candy sake. He bought her from, he came from a poor family. She came from a poor family. He bought her for sum of 2 lakhs, which is not in my book. I'm just sharing it with you. Because see, one thing was very challenging for me. One thing was very challenging for me was that what I was writing was for my father. It was his past life. I could write anything. But the family I was writing about, for them, it is their current life, like ancestor, and they are known people.
Absolutely.
Sab kuch hai. And my aim was not to, bring any kind of embarrassment or anything to anybody. And I could not change names because that would take away the validity of the whole topic.
Wow.
I could not say that what my father said, that he was poisoned by his wife. Because again, it was needed for the subject. So I only put in the book what was needed to prove my reincarnation. And what was really funny was that they helped me with everything. They gave me all the documents, pictures, support from both the sides. Both families I got connected with, both the wives' descendants. जो लोग आपस में, you can understand when there are 2 wives involved. So descendants तक भी in fighting चलती रहती है. आपस में वो लोग नहीं मिलते थे. I got them connected. Then I even traced his, again, it was predestined, I think. पता लगा कैसे करते करते कि उनके फादर की साइड का भी एक रिलेटिव हमने ढूंढ लिया. ताया जी का बेटा.
Wow.
And that is why it is all destiny, I say, because he did an MBA with my brother. So लोग वही होते हैं, घूम के. Why? Circle is same, you meet the same people again and again in your life.
Because there's incompletions. There is karmic incompletion. That's why we always take birth in soul families. We move in soul families. In one lifetime, you could be the brother. In another lifetime, you could be, a sister.
Anybody, just anyone.
Just in
but
anyone.
Whoever you feel, whoever you meet, whether for in the car, अब तो मेरे को लगता है even for fleetingly, anybody you come in contact with, there is a reason.
Yes,
छोटा है
it's
या
not
लंबा है या
random.
कुछ भी.
Even for a day, if you meet somebody,
even for train में भी आपका co-passenger भी अगर है.
Absolutely. It's
and
not
it doesn't have to be previous life ka karma to repay in the next birth. It could be, it is a carry forward from many births.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It is
and
no point.
People who remember their past lives are untimely deaths. They have unfinished business.
Yes.
They can remain in astral forms if they choose to. They choose the womb. They choose the womb.
Yes.
Souls choose the womb they want to be born from, out of.
Yes. Because
and
when
this
they...
is
Absolutely. Because the soul with the lot of karma scripts out events of this lifetime. Kiske saath complete karna hai business. So then accordingly, the whole storyline is scripted. That's why what you said, that बुरा काम करना भी is part of the soul script. It's not आप जान के कर रहे हो. It is already
he said करना
scripted.
नहीं चाहता, जान के कोई नहीं करना चाहता, हो जाता है.
Yes, absolutely. It's already scripted. Because वो बुरा करना is also part of an incompletion, karmic incompletion. Amazing.
He also said, I saw no heaven, I did not see any heaven, I did not see any hell, but कोई power जरूर है, कोई energy जरूर है, but मैंने ना heaven, जो यहाँ पर है सब यहीं भुगतते हैं, जो hell है हम लोग living hell है हमारा, जो है जो old age है, whatever it is, and so as I said, he came back, and I see when I compare the two lives, and I see the difference between stark difference, contrast. Some characters are same, and yet that aristocracy was there in my father even in this life, huh? But that feeling of कि मैं ये भी ले लूं, वो भी ले लूं, that greediness was not there. That he was a total, जैसे होता है ना, he had seen done it all, जैसे होता है ना, seen it all, done it, and the futility of it, and the futility of it. He married twice, family life एक भी नहीं enjoy की, passed away at the age of 42.
Wow, that is early.
I think he wanted love. His soul craved for love. His soul craved for a good family life. He was born after 7 sisters. He was doted upon by everybody. And of course, he was a nice person. That also was there. But still, like, we got a lot of love from care from everyone. And you know what? Something which is not in the book, because my father was still living when the book was done. I lost my father 2 years ago. And, you know, now when I think about it, I have started to believe that your date of death is also predestined.
Yes, it is.
And maybe it's the same every time. I don't know, because he got sick on the day Sundar Das passed away, right? 30th of October. And if we had not taken him to the hospital that night, he would have left his body that night. There was nothing wrong with him, nothing wrong. He just stopped eating. He said, please, mere ko jaane do, mera time ho gaya hai. He kept saying that. And because he was very frail, and 93 ke to 96 ke to ho hi rahe the, so without food, even 2 din bhi agar reh lega koi jo bhi, we took him to the hospital, we fed him through his nose, we put him on oxygen. And he, वैसे उनमें जान नहीं थी, ऐसे निकाल के वो फेंक रहे थे, मतलब सब कुछ ना, मेरे को जान, ऐसे हाथ, मेरे को जाने दो, but 2 days we forced him to stay alive. And finally, the day he left his body was the day he had entered my grandmother's womb.
Wow, interesting.
And when I was sitting next to his body, I was thinking, my father must be up here somewhere and saying, why are you crying? Can't you see I'm sleeping?
See you in the next life. See you in the next life. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yes. Mr. Khurana here wants to ask a question.
Yeah, sure.
Haji, Khurana ji. If you can put on your camera, sir, that will be great.
Namaskar,
Namaskar,
Amrita ji. I just want to understand one thing, and that is, since he had 2 lives, and since he had the past life also, did any of the experiences of past life benefited him in this life, in whether in relationship or business or anything else?
Benefit him.
Either limited him,
yes,
or
definitely. I would say that I'm glad that you asked this question, because I don't know whether it was his experience from his past life, which he remembered also and carried with him the burden. He did not want to get married. And you can imagine in those days, लाडला बेटा 7 बहनों के बाद, पहले एक ताया जी, उसके बाद 7 बहनें, बीच में फिर एक बच्चा हुआ, वो भी कहता है मैंने शादी नहीं करनी. मतलब nobody could understand why. They forced him to get engaged to my mother. And my mother was a double late, she was double MA, she was a very educated, she was the principal of Khalsa College here, she was from Amritsar, and yet you will not believe 5 years engagement rahi. जितनी बारी शादी का कार्ड छपता था, कुछ भी प्रिटेक्स्ट पे वो कैंसिल करवा देते थे.
So he was carrying with him all the pain from the past life. How nice. How interesting.
His wife, right? For some reason. And then finally unko jab, naturally my mother was also getting old, you know, and she was not someone with that girlish figure or something. She was very well and you know, she was a bit healthy. So naturally parents were also worried.
I can understand. I
5
appreciate
साल आप एंगेजमेंट डाली हुई है आपने, तो उन्होंने मेरे फादर को बुलाया अमृतसर, मेरे नाना जी ने, एंड उनको पकड़ के दरवाजे, मतलब माय लाला जी, माय ग्रैंडफादर, माय फादर और एक बेस्ट फ्रेंड डैडी के, और 3 लोग और 2 लोग और कौन थे, उनको 5 लोग गए थे, उनको कमरे में बंद करके बोला करनी है या नहीं करनी, आई वांट एन आंसर यस और नो, आइदर वे. ही सेड करनी है, तो he said सवेरे फेरे होंगे. You will not believe, after 5 years of engagement, 7 बहनों के अरमान, मेरी माता जी के अरमान, एंड ये मेरे लाला जी ने फोन करके माता जी को बोला तैयारी करो बहू लेके आ रहे हैं. रात को टेलर को उठा के ब्लाउज सिलवाया गया कि सवेरे फेरे होने हैं, and he said we are not letting him go. And occasion was my mama ji was getting married, तो उसके लिए invite किया था, ये लोग गए थे. So finally बारात में 5 लोग थे, including my father. And शादी was done near जंगपुरा में, दमदमा साहब गुरुद्वारे में. And so I think that was one thing. And my father regretted that he should not have married. That thing he even till late. अच्छा ये बात थी कि जो भी उनको कहते हैं, मेरे को 12 साल तक faces भी याद थे. After 12, the memory of like visual memory started fading. But whatever he said, he maintained till the end. कुछ नया नहीं याद आया, but whatever he said, he maintained, he remembered, and he spoke about it, and it was validated. He never added anything अलग से. And पर कहते शक्लें मेरे को 12 साल तक तो शक्लें भी याद थी. उसके बाद as I grew older and got involved in my whatever, so फिर शक्लें भूल गई.
Wow.
So and then when I thanked these people in Pakistan for the research, for the help, so he said Bibi, they used to call me Bibi. They said कैसी बात करते हो, शुक्रिया तो हमें आपका अदा करना चाहिए बीबी, जो आपने हमारे मुल्क के ऐसे नामी ग्रामी शख्स के बारे में आप लिख रहे हो 100 साल बाद. Imagine if people are talking like that about him. Wow. And a Muslim country, इसको हम लोग इतना बोलते हैं कि like and these are the common people. There's a carpenter Tarkhan who's the 3rd generation for Sundar Das. कहता है तहखाने थे, लॉकर थे, हम बड़ा he's very proud of the fact हम ही को बुलाते हैं जब तहखाने में कुछ कराना होता है ना. Okay. And my father in this life.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm interrupting you. We have very little time left, and Nitin Makija over here also wants to ask a question. I want everyone's questions to be answered today. Yes.
Yeah. Firstly, good evening, Amrita ji. Very, very, I'm amazed. I'm actually at the airport. I have the flight in a few minutes. I just want to ask this question. Okay. I'm actually very amazed. I never thought that such things happen in people's life. One thing which I'm very curious to understand, that you finally went back to the older family in his older age only. So why, like, so many years you let them pass, and what was he doing? He was just telling his stories, but you were not paying attention to those stories.
As I said, that he did try to reach UVA also. He did try whatever he thought in his mind that he could do about his story. But in my mind, it was always something which was in Pakistan. It's not with us now. Something that happened in another country. I never thought that after partition that family could have moved here. It never occurred to me, to be very frank. It was only, as I said, when I promised him to take him to Dinga. And that itself led to me so many discoveries, fascinating discoveries, that I said now a book is called for. And
Um,
then I said, agar if he was Rai Bahadur, there has to be an obituary. How can there be no obituary on him when I have the date with me? I called up Pakistan, I called up Baluchistan library, jahan Quetta, where he passed away. They said, wahan external affairs se permission chahiye, ye chahiye, only then we'll give you access. Everything is digitalized, but I did not have access. So then I went, then I said to myself, I said, वो तो undivided India था, India में भी तो libraries हैं. Let me start looking. फिर मैंने Pioneer देखा, Pioneer में पता लगा आग लग गई, National Herald में भी शायद कुछ destroy हो गया था. फिर मैं ये नेहरू लाइब्रेरी जो है हमारी नेशनल लाइब्रेरी, it's I think Pandit Nehru Library के नाम से है. I enrolled as a member there, temporary member there, to go and do my research, because I knew the death year and the death date, which was shared with me by this family. So I started looking for those dates. When I started looking for those dates, एक week निकल गया. रोज सवेरे से शाम तक हम बैठे रहते थे और करते रहे. slots आपको मिलते हैं. Lot of booking appointment advance में होती है. There's a lot of rush there. वो digitalize किया हुआ है उन्होंने उस time period का. And I could not find anything. और वो बड़ा इतना न्यूज़पेपर डिजिटलाइज किया हुआ एंड करे जा रहे, हाथ की व्हील है, ऐसे उसको घुमाते रहो. तो देन मैंने वो डेट भी पार कर दी, 30th अक्टूबर भी निकल गया. आई सेड ये तो वेरी सैड, मतलब ऑबिचुरी नहीं है. फिर आई फाउंड आउट कि डींगा में न्यूज़पेपर ही नहीं था उन दिनों. देयर वाज नो लोकल न्यूज़पेपर इन डींगा. आई वाज इन्फॉर्म्ड बाय द पीपल इन पाकिस्तान. फिर मैंने ढूंढना शुरू किया, ट्रिब्यून, पायनियर, ट्रिब्यून ढूंढा. देन करते करते मेरे को समझ आई कि उस टाइम डेली न्यूज़पेपर नहीं आता था. न्यूज यूज्ड टू गेट कलेक्टेड, और जब आपकी 30 तारीख की न्यूज 8 तारीख को भी आ सकती है, आपकी 30 तारीख की न्यूज 10th को भी आ सकती है. वो जब इकट्ठी हो जाती थी तब आता था, डेली न्यूज़पेपर छपता ही नहीं था. तो ट्रिब्यून में आई स्टिल रिमेम्बर दैट मोमेंट. I will show you. I have to show you this.
I have that clipping with me.
Oh, you have it?
Yeah. Let me share.
Tribune का इतना बड़ा newspaper. मेरी book में I put actual inserts to show you what it exactly felt like and what it exactly is. पूरा newspaper में. So this is the actual newspaper. इतना बड़ा digitalized, उसमें छोटी सी मिली मेरे को clipping यहाँ पे. It's called domestic occurrence. That was the only thing I found. यहाँ से मेरे को time of death मिला. इसमें लिखा है 8 PM he passed away. Even family को नहीं पता था time. And my father said, अस्पताल भी ले गए पर बचना क्या था. मेरा तो पहले ही मैंने आना क्या था. मेरे को तो इतना strong जहर दिया था. He told my ये जो है ना. So this was what I found, which was published. अगर आप ऊपर जाओगे, it's not published on 30th October. It's published on 9th, I think, 9th November.
4th November. 4th November.
So 30th October की news was published on 4th November.
So it says his many friends will be extremely sorry to learn that Rai Bahadur Lala Bahadur Das Chopra of Diga आगे कुछ पढ़ा नहीं जा रहा.
Government contractor.
गवर्नमेंट कॉन्ट्रैक्टर treasury magistrate Quetta died at Quetta.
Which my father said he was a contractor, he would say. At 8 PM and prayer meeting will be at
Kriya
Diga.
ceremony takes place at Diga on Wednesday the 9th. And then it's
जब
not
ये
clear.
मिला तो फिर मैंने prayer meet शुरू की ढूंढनी, फिर वो भी ढूंढी, prayer meet भी ढूंढी फिर मैंने. And so one thing led to another. Of course, it was a lot of, and as I said, I did not want to put anything which was not documented or did not have supporting picture or a document or validation by the family or anybody.
You know, there are very,
and
very few.
best was when this. Anji, I would like to share here.
Please.
When this Chopra, when the Chopras went to Lucknow to meet my father thought that मतलब तब तक क्यों ही, मतलब इतनी सेंसेस थी उनको. I had told him कि ये लोग मिलने आ रहे हैं आपको. He was very excited. अपना suited booted. He was, otherwise he would not bother. अपने बेस्ट उसमें कब से रेडी होके बैठे हुए थे. हाँ, जब अंदर आए तो हमने कहा ये आपसे मिलने आए हैं, आपसे क्वेश्चंस पूछेंगे. He said बच्चे आए हैं, मैंने कोई बात नहीं करनी अपनी डेथ के बारे में. मैं आज इतना बड़ा हो गया, मैंने कोई बात नहीं करनी. तो everybody was so. I said, Daddy, how can you not talk? You love to talk about your. He could only open his mouth when it was about politics or reincarnation. Only two things interested him. Otherwise, he would not talk. So I said, how will you not talk today? Because he knew कि जो जिस वाइफ ने पॉइजन किया था उसके फैमिली आ रही है मिलने. He did not want to talk anything negative. He said, समझती नहीं हो. मैं इसीलिए नहीं बात करना चाह रहा था. मैं कुछ नहीं ऐसा करना चाह रहा था. बच्चे आए हैं, I want to be happy. मैं आज बहुत बड़ा हो गया.
Because I'm sure he must have also got a little perspective. Obviously, something like this would give you a completely different perspective. All those, the way you put it, negativity, any negative thought that they have for those who are
I think that
responsible
is
for
why
their
he was a
death.
better
Death in itself,
human being.
because death in itself was just a sort of a milestone in his journey. That's what it boils
It
down
is
to.
actually, if you see the life, that human form that we take, this is not a destination. This is just a journey. It's a transit. This is not a final journey. It's just like shedding of clothes, like it's a different body. You go and you wear some other clothes. That is it. It's not your destination. This is not a final, thing. So, and my father realized that. And he also realized that I don't know if that made him good or he was born good. I don't know. Why he was a giver. My mother always used to say, "Inka bas chale to apni shirt bhi utar ke de aaye kisi ko." That kind of a person he was in this life. So.
Okay, Monica has a question. Monica.
Insurance, and he said, "Businessman kaise ban gaye aap?" That was another thing which I related to Sundar Das ki inherent quality. I said, and my grandfather who was in British Railways, उन्होंने अपने जैसे होता है, कॉन्टैक्ट अच्छे थे, बहुत हाई पोस्ट पे थे, सारे रिश्तेदारों को, सब अपनी बहनों के बच्चों को, सबको रेलवेज में लगवाया उन्होंने. He wanted his own son to join railways. इंटरव्यू जबरदस्ती दिलवाया, पोस्ट भी करा दिया, सब कुछ हो गया. He never attended. He could not work under anybody. He did his engineering. He started his business. He was the first one to do business in our family.
Okay, Monica has
a businessman.
I'm so sorry. Monica has a question now. Monica.
Okay, Amrita ji, a most fascinating account, and I have to say thank you so much for writing the book.
No, thank you so much for being here still with me.
Yes, it's the topic of reincarnation and finding real life cases that can validate it. I mean, I think this gives us a lot, gives a lot to the world to think about.
I think the biggest takeaway I feel is it makes you a better person. If we can even think of, take that little takeaway to attempt to be a better person. I think the purpose of my book is, fulfilled.
Yes, totally. Because, we can question and doubt, the whole idea of reincarnation. But when you have such solid, rock solid cases in front of you, what does that tell us? It tells us, that there's this whole journey of the soul, and the soul as an entity is actually a real thing. It's not just a figment of, spiritualists. But my question for you is that how did your father feel about his relatives, from his past life? For instance, when he finally got to meet, his descendants, these would be his,
so as I said, he could not, as I said, he was so overwhelmed, and so he kept saying, he kept spreading his arms wide as he could to embrace everybody in the room. And he said, "Aaj main bahut bada ho gaya," in Punjabi. which translates to actually मैं आज बहुत बड़ा हो गया. So, and he asked his great grandson of his second wife who had accompanied that तो आपको रानी साहिबा ने कुछ दिया, because he had left treasure behind. He says मेरे ड्राइवर की मदद से मैंने ट्रेजर दबाया था सुंदर महल में पीछे की तरफ, पीछे वाले टावर के पीछे ट्रेजर दबाया था. एंड वो ड्राइवर को पता था. मेरी वाइफ ड्राइवर से मिल गई.
Were there any...
my grand...
Please continue.
And the father also said, I'm forgetting. Sorry, I got it when you were talking. Go ahead when I remember.
Oh, sure. Come back to us when you remember. So were there any physical similarities between him and his past self in his previous life? I've seen the pictures of the two gentlemen on, your book's cover, but
yeah, as I said, there was subtle, visibly, they were poles apart. But scientifically, they say that your pupils जो होते हैं ना, जो retina never changes. अगर आप reincarnation में किसी भी expert से भी बात करोगे ना, अगर आप, if you see the eyes of both in my book, you will see they are same. You can see the same eyes looking at you. मतलब अंदर का, not the structure, not big or small. I'm talking about. And दूसरा, otherwise, he was a very roly-poly kind of a guy, well-fed types in the previous life. Lala, really Lala. My father was always very lean. I think that comes from your current DNA because of your parents who you are born from, maybe. But inherent traits, that aristocracy, that shocking thing in the sense कि not shock मतलब कि महल बना लूं, but to give us the best. I'm talking about the things which up to itna, I don't know, younger generation will not relate to it, but when I was growing up, हमारे time imported stuff और ये सब like कहाँ मतलब गिनती के soap के brands होते थे, कोई नया कुछ आ गया तो बहुत बड़ी बात होती थी. My father was the first one to pick up the best powder which has come in town, best soap that has come in town, best fragrance that is, and get it for us, and not one or two but bulk में. एक स्टोर रूम होता था जिसमें मतलब हम लोग we could have opened a provision store there. मतलब हर चीज इतनी ज्यादा लेके आते थे, everything in abundance.
Okay.
So
any ways in which he was noticeably different, personality wise or talent wise?
As I said, there was no greed in him in this life at all. There was no this thing about in him to possess anything. Even the houses that he made with his business, with his money, with his earnings, he मतलब अपने grandson जो अभी बच्चा था उसके नाम घर लिया. He never bought anything in his name throughout his life. पिछले जन्म में तो उन्होंने शहर के शहर खरीदे थे, महल के महल बनाए थे.
So that desire of his, I think, got satiated in that birth.
He had seen it all and the futility
And the
what
futility,
it did
yes.
to him.
He had learned his lesson as well. Yes.
And what it did to him.
Right.
But Amrita ji, he had the benefit of remembering so vividly, the details of his past life, but the vast majority of us don't have that. So do you think that because he remembered all of this, it affected his entire outlook towards life? Or is it something that even
Sorry,
if you
can you come again, please? I could not hear.
Sure. My question is that your father, in your father's case, he remembered the details of his past life so very vividly. And
but not everything, as I said, huh?
Not everything, but still enough.
Some things, yes.
But enough for him to know that, yes, this was his past life.
Yeah, yes. To validate his reincarnation, yes.
Yes, but this is a very rare thing. And, then all of us as the norm, we don't remember our past lives. So when we don't remember our past lives, what I'm trying to say is that, are there some things we just carry on in our soul? What is your assessment? See, because your father remembered from his past life.
Yes.
it would affect his philosophy and his outlook on life. You know, he would feel a certain way because he remembered it all. But for those of
Right.
us who don't remember, so what happens? Do we carry these feelings or this imprint in our soul that maybe I should not do this? Yeah.
See, you choose your womb, you take birth to pay out your karma, whatever it is, good or bad. But then how you live your life is up to you in this life. You can either go up in your karma or you can even go down. You can add more burden to your karma or you can repay your karma. How you live is what you do in this life. You know, the
Sure.
way you live, the people you come and interact with, how we deal with, we change our perceptions over time. So there are things we learn, we make mistakes, we learn from them. That is how I see it. You do choose a womb to pay out your karma, but then you can also add more debt to your karma, or you can be a better soul and maybe, you know, be a better human being and pay back some of your debts. Nobody's perfect, of course, you know, nobody's God.
Yes.
Can I just add something to this, please?
Yes.
Okay, so just imagine if you remembered, he had a purpose why he remembered. It was not an accident too, because he had a message to give. But imagine if any of us, we remember, there's a reason why we forget, because we've lived so many past lives that suppose your husband today was somebody who killed you, how would you be able to, and you knew that, how would you be able to live with him if you discover suddenly that memory came alive? Because when we do past lives, we close that lifetime and we say, okay, that lifetime is over. You have to close it at a subconscious level. You can't leave it open, because
I think he never got time to close it at a subconscious level because he took birth immediately after.
Yes, but the thing mein vadda ho gaya was a completion for him. In a
Aaj
certain
main bahut
way.
vadda ho gaya.
That was
And
a
you know,
completion with him.
Yeah. And after my book was out, one day he was coming home at night and he stopped at the gate and he's saying he must be 94, 95 at that time. He says, बहुत परेशान हो चुका हूँ पर क्या करूँ, बहुत लंबी जिंदगी कब से चली आ रही है, 100 कितने साल से 2 जिंदगियां जी रहा हूँ ना, I'm living to this thing, तो ये तो होना ही है, परेशानियां तो है ही हैं, and गलती तो मैंने की है. He kept saying that मैंने गलती तो की, and he was never bitter towards any of the wives. He always blamed himself. He said it was my mistake.
That is quite a sign of evolution and maturity. Not I won't say maturity as such, but evolution is the word, where you start seeing everything, you know, coming from your deep inside you, that you have been accountable for your life. It is your decisions which have led to the life that you have lived, right? So okay,
Yeah, so when you
Manmeet,
read the chapter on the question answer thing, there are lots of questions there which he's answered, and then you see how he is evolved. He used to think about it and then talk. Even till the end, he remembered, and you know, he would think about it.
so we have another
Yes.
author with us right now. In fact, we have more than one authors today, but another author whose book has just come out
Okay.
last month. He wants to ask you something. Manmeet, over to you. If you can put on your camera,
Nice.
yes, great.
Yeah, I did. Good evening, Amrita. What a fascinating story. What a fascinating journey. And it's eye-opening. Which part of was it? Rawalpindi?
No, it was Dinga. It's 100 and
Near Lahore.
something kilometers from Lahore.
Okay, Lahore. Okay.
Near
Because
Lahore.
yeah, so people from Lahore and Rawalpindi are supposed to be very magnanimous in their dealings and as hosts. I think you must be aware of that generally. Like the saying used to go,
I
"Jinne Lahore nahi
think
dikhya,
everybody in
unhe kuch nahi dikhya."
Pakistan is very magnanimous. We have the common person is very hospitable, very magnanimous. they'll go out of your way to help you. And that's what at least this thing. And I had so many invitations pending from there. They said, "बस आप आ जाओ, आप हमारे मेहमान हो." And Ram Pyari Mahal is in Lahore. The second wife का जो बनाया था उन्होंने.
Okay,
That is
that's
in
in
Lahore.
Lahore. Fine. Okay. The second question I have for you is a little bit more of a personal question, because I'm more inclined towards spirituality. Did him being born a Sikh, did Gurbani influence him or in any way give him the contentment that maybe he was seeking? Because he's already seen the riches and the fact that, like you very rightly said, he didn't want any possession in this life. So one very major part of what we call Maya and the attraction of Maya, you want to hoard. And so that was not there. But did Gurbani help him in any way? Being born in any way?
So my mother, as I would say, my mother was more religious than him in rituals and everything, following everything. My father was more spiritual and scientific. Everything had to come with a reason, and towards the end, he did start to, still, but he was not one to, go. We've always had this thing Gurdwara in our house. Okay. Always. That was because of my mother. We've always had a Gurdwara in the house. And my mother would do the prakash and, like everything. My father would attend it, everything. But as I said, when it came to rituals and following all the beliefs.
The basic stuff, part,
it was my mother, not my father.
Part in Simran, was he doing any of that? Or was he doing the basic part, the prayers and Simran? No.
Okay. My mother was even doing those beads. बच्चों के एग्जाम है तो 40 times ये करना है पार्ट. अच्छा भाई अब ये हो गया, फीवर हो गया तो मेडिसिन तो बाद में दे ही रहे हैं, साथ में वो हो रहा है ताती पाओ ना लागी वाला, साथ में जाप हो रहा है. And my father was not any मतलब he believed in being a good human being, I would say.
Okay, that's a very basic part. Okay, thank you for that update. It's I think a book has got a lot of research and a tremendous amount of hard work in reaching out to people, convincing people to come forward and share. So really commend you on that and bringing the story in the front.
Thank you so much, as I said, for listening to it. It means a lot. I did it for my father. I'm glad I could do it while he was there. I left it till too late, I feel, but still. And it's available on Amazon. It's available with me. It's available on my publishing out, my website, which is down at the moment.
No worries. We'll definitely order it and get to read it. We had a similar story, but similar story in the sense, it seems we had a very big Haveli in Pakistan before partition. And then we all just were lucky to just come over with our clothes when the partition happened. So many of there's so much similarity and familiarity with your story. Not exactly everything about Rai Bahadur, but at least the wealth and the pompousness which was there before partition. And our family shared something similar to that. So I don't know, it felt so familiar and close to home. Thank you for that.
In those few years, like he made his wealth only during First World War, and he passed away in 1920. In that little period of time, he made mansions which you have to see the marvel of architecture which he did at that time.
Wow.
It's in my book. You can Google Sundar Das Mahal. You can see it. You can Google Ram Pyari Mahal. You can see it in my book. It's a piece of, you have to see it to believe it.
Okay, Amritaji, we are really engrossed in this conversation. And we have lost track of time, but we have some.
I also delayed everybody. I'm sorry.
No. Where is? I think Tarun has. Tarun.
Yeah,
yes,
you want to
ask a question.
Sorry, Amritaji, I was listening intently for the last half hour because before that I was busy with a customer, so I just didn't pick up many threads. But still, it is very interesting that your father lived two lives simultaneously. My question, as always, is whether you perceive him as a different person emotionally than a normal being, or was he as normal as other people? I mean, what impact did it have on his emotional well-being, remembering the past life? Was he more
See, I knew
advanced?
him as a father.
Was he more emotionally well balanced, or was he, sometimes like somewhat different?
He was very, very emotionally balanced. I think he was the most balanced amongst all of us, my siblings, and my mother was very, very emotional, and I know him as my father, so obviously I'll say he was the best father for me. He always was good provider, as I said. But he was not a very, as I said, emotion. If you think like he was wearing his emotions on his sleeve all the time, no. And he reasoned out scientific. He was a very scientific person in mind. His mind was very scientific. He would not accept anything just because my mother would say कि ऐसा कर लो तो ऐसा हो जाएगा, religious belief या कुछ. He would not take it without any substance to it.
That's it.
Okay.
Even
Thank you
his
so
own
much.
rebirth, he treated it scientifically.
Monica, you have exactly 2 minutes
Sure.
for your question and the answer before we
Okay.
wind up.
So I'll be quick with the question. So Amrita ji, because you mentioned that your father's one of the favorite topics, very understandably, was reincarnation, and also because you would have studied this topic so closely, any books that you or him that you were really taken by on this subject, any resource on reincarnation for anybody who wants to know this better that you would recommend?
At least I can recommend the ones I am taken in by. One is about, I think it's been written. There was this lady in Bombay. The book is called, I think it's written by Shamak Davar. Someone known to him. A lady lost both her children in a car accident. They were preparing for a car rally. And, sorry?
Laws of the spiritual world.
Yeah, yes. Exactly. And it was about automatic writing, how the mother got in touch with the children through automatic writing. They would come to her and answer her questions. And many masters, many minds, of course, is always the a Bible kind of a place to go to. Yeah.
So you like that book? Okay.
Yes, many masters, many minds. Awesome. Many lives.
Many lives, many masters.
Many lives.
Many masters.
Yeah.
Not minds.
And also when I visited UVA, he presented me with 2-3 books which I still have to read.
All right. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Amritaji, thank you so much. We've been getting a downpour of comments on Zoom as well as on my WhatsApp.
I would just wish to thank everybody for, as I said, for bearing with me for so long.
It was
and
not
I'm
bearing
sorry for delaying everybody.
No, not at all. No, it was not bearing at all. We lost track of time. What more can we say?
No,
because
this is one topic I can go on and on. I lose track of time actually.
Yeah, actually, I had planned it in such a way that I will ask a question, you will answer. I will ask a question, you will answer, and I will ask about 10, 12
then
questions.
It became difficult to stop me. Huh?
Yes. After the second question, I realized that I don't need to ask anything else.
You gave up.
I even had a rapid fire round ready, but I think let it be. This was so enlightening, and thank you so much. And as Amrita ji has said, her book is available on Amazon, and it is available. Is it available on Kindle as well? No, it's not available.
It's on Amazon. It's on my website. I have a publishing house, and also through me you can get. My website is under there was some technical glitch in it, so at the moment it's down. But my phone number, I think you can share with everybody.
Yes, she's part of the group. She's part of the club. She's part of the WhatsApp group. I will tag her, and you can all get in touch with her for any.
And as I said, it's on Amazon.
Yes, it's on Amazon. Thank you so much. I am closing this. Any last comments from you, Amarendra?
Pleasure is
any
all
last
mine.
Thank you. Any last comments from you, Amrendra?
Absolutely, absolutely. So as you said, we are losing track of time, and so hopefully there will be many rebirths of this session.
Yes.
And another book, since another comment, since I am picking up a new phrase from Sadhana. Sadhana used a word that soul moves and people move in soul groups.
Soul groups. Huh.
So now these meetups are more like, or at least today's meetup was like a soul group meeting.
Wow, wow.
And
Well
just
put,
before
well
the
put.
session, I lost my voice almost.
And
I
now
said,
it is
"Oh, God."
perfectly fine. I was about to comment on that. It is perfectly fine now.
After the thing is over.
Congratulations. Yeah. So next time you have a sore throat, call me and I'll arrange a book review session for you.
And not
right?
give you a
All
chance
right.
to
All right.
talk.
All right. Okay. Bye. Have a good evening, everyone. All you,
Thank you so much.
wonderful people from
Thank
GrayLeap.
you.
Thank you
Thank you
all.
so much.
Thank you.
All of
Wonderful
you. Thank
session.
you.
Very nice
Thank
session.
you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Amrita. Thank you,
Pleasure,
Rajesh.
pleasure.
Well curated,
I
Rajesh.
thank on behalf of my father.
Oh yes.
Thank
We
you.
bless him.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Super.